Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I am coming to you relatively late in the evening, East Coast time. It's 10:20 right now as I'm starting to record this. I'm going to do a one-shot. There's probably going to be mistakes, but if you don't know, Elon Musk did a live stream. He finally did it. I believe it was with Ashok Elluswamy. They didn't bother to introduce themselves at the beginning of the video. It's like, come on, guys. But it sure sounded like him. Anyway, I believe it was the two of them driving around Palo Alto. And they tried to go find Mark Zuckerberg's house, and which is really funny. They actually Googled it, and I was like, I please hope that it's not actually Mark's house, because that would be so embarrassing if they actually kind of like doxed him or whatever. But I figured that they figured if they Googled it, anybody else could do that, so they just took the results and just assumed that that wasn't going to be there. So anyway, I want to talk about just, again, kind of a hot take, but there is a lot of information that came about that was quite useful to find out, that fits in with a whole bunch of other videos, and you can check those out up here if you haven't seen those videos yet, including one from Ashok who talks about version 12 of the software, or he didn't say version 12, but kind of said the next version was going to be a world model, and it was going to be very, very different, and it was going to be end-to-end machine learning code. And that does turn out, in fact, to be what it sounds like they were driving. So first of all, they were driving in Palo Alto, which is in Central California near San Francisco, down a little bit south of that. Absolutely beautiful. I got to be there last year. In fact, I was in the parking lot that they ended up at and started at for the video. And I was like, oh, I know that place. So anyway, it was a very complicated parking lot. It was really impressive watching the car navigate there, because I got lost several times and had to ask the security guards where I was going, because I had no idea where I was going. So anyway, so the car did better than I did when I was driving around there. And also the pine trees are absolutely gorgeous. I don't really have a good way of integrating the video, and some of it was like relatively low quality. Some of it was vertical, some of it was horizontal. It was all over the place. I would, if I could give a suggestion, Elon, I would suggest that you perhaps invest in a suction mount. In fact, I'll put a link to it in the description so you can just go grab it. It works great. I got the idea from myself, but I got the particular suction mount I bought from Gail Afar. She had a really good sort of tripod one with this sort of sideways mount that's really fantastic. Anyway, so definitely check it out in the description. It's rock solid. And next time you do a live stream, which will hopefully be with me, you can actually use that, and it will give you a much more solid sort of base for a shot. So anyway, that was the number one thing. Number two, I loved the music selections. I loved the classical music and stuff, but for the purposes of a demo drive, it got a little bit interfering sometimes. So here I am giving critiques about the nature of the live stream. Anyway, I'll get over that stuff. So Elon was driving, I believe, his Model S. It is with hardware 3 in it, not hardware 4. And so this is a vehicle that everybody can drive, right? Our Model Y, our Model 3, everybody's Model S's. There are some that have hardware 4 in them now, but this is hardware 3. So if you go back and you look at the videos that I've done recently, where I've talked about my theory, and I'll put a link to this up here, that you're not going to see full self-driving beta on hardware 4 for a while yet because of the differences in the architecture. That would go along with my theory, because otherwise he might have driven a car with hardware 4 in it instead. So it's not definite, but that I'm sticking with that theory that you're not going to see full self-driving beta on, or alpha. Okay. The other thing is that this is version 12 alpha. Okay. So remember that as well. So anyway, but I expect you will not see the hardware 4 version of that for a period of time yet. Anyway, one thing he said was that people are training this all around the world, which was really interesting. He mentioned New Zealand many, many times. I think that's because it's winter time there, but New Zealand, I believe, just like Australia and Japan, are left-hand drive countries. So that's really interesting. But also in particular that they wanted to drive it around in a more winter environment. And obviously in the Northern Hemisphere, it's summer right now. He did mention that Palo Alto, California in general, has generally very nice weather, unless a hurricane's coming by with an earthquake. But anyway, unless that happens, generally most of the time the weather is good. And so they need to go other places to gather data from that. Speaking of which, he said, and Ashok, again, I'm just going to guess that was him, but the high quality data is the most important kind of data. So lots and lots of mediocre data is actually worse. Like if you had 10 times the amount of mediocre data, it would be better to have 1/10 of that amount of data, but have super high quality data. And they're finding that out with large language models too, that one of the reasons why things like Chat GPT and stuff, or just GPT that trained up to get there, were not as good as some other versions that are fine-tuned, is literally because the software had a lot of mediocre to wrong data. So again, just imagine a teacher who is teaching you, but they're giving you the wrong information. You're going to learn the wrong thing. So if you think about it, if you have a lot of poor quality data, you're going to learn poor quality stuff. And then it becomes harder to actually learn the good quality stuff that you want to learn. So that's number one. He talked about high quality data was very, very important. Number two, of course, like I said, with their training, they have people, literal beta 12 or alpha 12 testers around the world. So it's not even the current version 11, but it's actually version 12 that they are testing around the world in many places. Also, rapid virtuous cycle. When interventions, it's automatically uploaded to training. So that is really interesting. That was something I did not necessarily know. What this basically means is that every time I'm driving full self-driving beta and I have to intervene and something happens and I take it out of full self-driving, I would assume even more so when I actually take the time to give a note with that, it is uploaded to Tesla so that they can take a look at it. So that's really, really interesting. I thought that maybe they weren't actually as aggressively doing that, but it sounds like they actually are. So they're being very aggressive and assertive about grabbing those interventions. So everybody, if you're intervening, you are actually helping to train full self-driving. So good for you. Good for all of us. Okay, so version 12, as we have all suspected, is in fact entirely neural networks. In fact, Elon has tweeted about this before, but he was more details about this. There is no explicit code to do anything anymore. And again, he talked about going from about 300,000 lines of C++ code, C code. And I assume that that was including a bunch of neural networks already, but there is currently a bunch of hard-coded stuff in version 11 of the software. All of that has been scrapped. I'm sure, small amounts of hard code in there to glue things together, but everything, about 3,000 lines. So again, 2 orders of magnitude reduction in the amount of lines of code. It's now completely learning on its own. It's learning everything on its own. So this is really important. This is the crux of this video, if you care about that. No traffic lights have been taught to it. No stop signs have been taught to it. No humans have been taught to it. No bicycles have been taught to it. Motorcycles, no roundabouts. No, nothing. It was not given any explicit labeling. That is very, very, very different than the way that full self-driving has been trained up till now. And if you remember another video that I did, Elon Musk said, quote, "It's so simple," that he was basically saying that they discovered that what they could do is they could train this thing up much more simply. Now, the much more simply entails having made all of the steps to get there and creating an incredible data flywheel so that they're able to collect data. And we're going to talk about a specific instance of that in just a second. But anyway, it basically is training itself with no a prioris. So you're not giving it labels. You're not telling it anything. You're allowing it to learn from the videos, from the labels that they get. And it sounds like there's also to some extent, it's gamified itself. So it's able to generate next frames when it sees previous frames. So it's able to kind of generate worlds as well and train on its own. That wasn't mentioned as explicitly and as much in this particular drive, but it has been mentioned other places. So anyway, if you take nothing else away from this video, that is that when we go from version 11 to version 12, we're going to reduce by about 2 orders of magnitude the amount of code that's involved. We're going to increase the frame rate. In fact, he said that they're frame rate limited now, not by the processing of all this stuff, but literally by the cameras. The cameras are 36 frames per second, and they can't go faster. And they think that they could actually operate at more like 50 hertz, 50 times per second, if they had cameras that operated faster. So it's amazing. I mean, we're not going to have a problem. 36 frames a second is perfectly fine to drive with. It's faster than human beings. We're, somewhere around 15 to 20 frames per second. It's kind of loosey-goosey the way we do it. But anyway, it's faster than we drive. So, or faster than we process the world. But that's an amazing thing that the code has become so simplified and so reduced that no longer are we looking at needing more hardware, but we actually need, the current version of hardware 3, is adequate to doing it, and it actually operates faster than the cameras do, which means that we are no longer compute limited in this process, and that's also hugely important. So nothing a priori, doesn't know anything. It learns everything about the world, end-to-end world model, all neural networks, reduction in code, operates faster, learns everything on its own. This is really amazing. This is like kind of incredible. I mean, it is. It's the obvious, simple solution, but at the same time, it's also just ridiculous that it actually works and that, you know, the functionality wise, this thing is able to do this. And that is all thanks to Tesla's incredible AI team and the data flywheel that they've got and the data curation that they've got and the ability to find the data that they want. And all of that kind of stuff goes into being able to train this thing the way that they want to. Here is, and I'm going to say one thing, I think they mentioned this, but I'm almost definitely going to title this video Nets All the Way Down, or Nothing But Nets All the Way Down. Sorry. So anyway, the idea is that it's just like all neural networks, but of course with the NBA, nothing but net, right? So you got to swish, but it's all the way down with neural networks. Anyway, so it's a really cool thing. Okay, so this is what they started talking about. Elon said, oh yeah, only 5% of people stop at stop signs, actually like come to a stop, and then go. And then Ashok said, nope, it's actually 0.5%. So that would be one person out of 200 actually stops. So, so that's insane. So basically, because they don't have hard coding, there is no if stop sign stop for 1 second, then go. There's nothing like that. You can't do that. That's not how neural networks work. So what they had to do instead was they had to go find the incredibly rare situations where people actually came to a stop, pull all of that data out of the fleet data, utilize that to train, and then they were able to get the car to stop. And honestly, this is probably the reason why the car doesn't feel good, because I would suggest that only bad drivers actually stop at stoplights. It's a stop sign. Sorry, not stoplights. Everyone should stop at stoplights. But that a good driver, if there's nobody else around, is simply not going to come to a complete stop. They'll roll it at a mile or two an hour. That's just the way it's honestly, I mean, if literally, what is that, 99.5% of people do it, then that's the way that it should be done. And it's only because of NHTSA that Tesla is having to change this and do a complete stop. And it's only bad drivers that actually stop at stop signs, the very conservative, very scared drivers. And that means that the car is going to actually behave like a bad driver in that situation. So I would say, please, NHTSA, please allow the vehicle, at least optionally with like a radio button, allow it to behave like an actual human driver, because it's ridiculous. Nobody stops. Like if only 0.5%, and they have a lot of data to prove this. If 0.5% of people stop, it's ridiculous to have stop signs and say that the car has to behave that way when no 1 out of 200 people behave that way. So, I mean, it's crazy. So anyway, that needs to get gone. But the incredible thing is that they are able to find from their gigantic fleet enough examples to train it how to stop at a stop sign. And then of course they have to throw away all of the other ones so that it doesn't learn the bad behavior of the way everybody else does it. So anyway, that's really, really cool that there's no code, and that in order to train to do something that, again, most people don't do, they have to find the edge cases of the drivers that do drive that way, and then they have to overrepresent that data. So anyway, very, very cool. Yeah, again, remember that we're driving version 11, so this is not what they're driving right now. Elon over and over again said how smooth it was, and I'll have to believe him. It's very difficult to tell from a video, but that's really cool. There was one intervention during this, and remember, this is, full self-driving version 12 alpha. It's not even a beta at this point. And what happened was that they were in a go straight lane, but there was also a left turn lane, and the left turn lane light came on, the little green arrow, and the cars tried to go through the intersection. So clearly that was a problem. But what Elon said was, and I'm guessing if we see mainstream media coverage of this tomorrow, it will be like it'll be breathless. It'll say Tesla tries to go through red light. And yes, it did, but it also drove around. I think that the live stream was about 50 minutes long or something. That was the only intervention, and it did everything else with great aplomb, including like avoiding humans and all that other stuff. So if you see those headlines, just understand, A, this is an alpha build, and B, Elon was just like, look, we're going to feed it more information. We'll feed it more of these types of intersections, and it will learn how to deal with that intersection better. And then it will just work. And he was like, whoops, well, this is the reason why we don't release this to the public yet. And that's the exact reason why they don't. So, so yes, there was an intervention, and yes, it was a safety critical one. You certainly don't want to go through that light. But the interesting thing was then that Ashok said that what we're going to do next, like after this stage, is release it in shadow mode, which means that for all of us driving around, the next time we get a software update on our Teslas and it doesn't seem to do all that much, what it might actually be doing is sneaking in full self-driving full self-driving alpha 12, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, it might be sneaking that in so that it's driving in shadow mode. And what that does is it's constantly predicting the next thing that's going to happen. And it's comparing that against the human driver. So in that circumstance, the car would have been sitting there in the right lane. The left turn arrow would have gone. The person would have pulled out to make the left turn. And then the car would have said, oh, I'm just about to go. It's cool. I should go. And the human driver would have kept their foot on the brake and said, no, I'm not going anywhere. And then the car would have probably sent that information, because it was a discrepancy, back to the supercomputers at Tesla's Palo Alto headquarters. Those computers would have crunched on it a while, and they would have been like, whoops, the neural network would have altered its weights to understand that that is not a situation. So they're going to teach it how to do that. And especially because it happened on a live stream with Elon Musk, I have a feeling that that problem is going to disappear quickly. That's going to be one of those things that somebody's pulling an all-nighter this weekend to get rid of that particular problem. So I feel bad. Sorry for whoever's doing that this weekend, because I have a feeling it's gonna be a number one priority to get rid of that one. So anyway, so shadow mode will be the next thing, and then of course it'll eventually get released out into the public. Will it be beta? I don't know. Elon Musk said that it wasn't going to be beta once it was version 12. He's very excited about this version, and the fact that an alpha version only had one intervention was really amazing. Super smooth driving, again, he kept mentioning that. This was really cool. When the car got done, they tried to go to Zook's house. No, it wasn't Zook's house. It was some other random location. He literally was just pushing on the map, and it would just go boop, and it would like find it. And so it got there, it pulled over to the side of the road into a parking area and stopped. It actually went into park. And they were like, yeah, it's been trained, because what it realizes is it watches human drivers. And when human drivers finish driving, unless they're going in a parking lot or a driveway, they pull over to the side of the road, they park in a spot, and then they put the car in park and they get out. So the car has learned how to do that. That's really, really cool. It knows it should pull over and park. All of that is from fleet training data. It's, again, nothing explicit. It's incredible. And they said, Elon said, eventually, assuming that you give it permission, the robotaxi version of this will be able to look around and see you, and if you've given it a picture of your face, it will go like, oh, that's John. And it will like drive like over another, couple hundred or couple feet or something, whatever. It'll pull over to where you are to pick you up. And if you say, I want to go to a Starbucks, I'm assuming because large language models are going to be integrated into this in some way, it will actually understand that that's the signage for Starbucks. So not just a GPS location, but it can look around and it can go like, oh, that's the like mermaid symbol or whatever that thing is for Starbucks. And it will actually pull up and it'll understand that what you want to get to is the front entrance and get out right there. So it's going to be very, very easy for people to utilize the robotaxis eventually. Anyway, very cool. It was stopped for quite a while for a couple of pedestrians who took their time walking across the street. So again, very conservative, very nice around pedestrians. They also went to Stanford's campus, which is gorgeous. There were pedestrians walking around there, and it dealt very well with them. So it was really good. It did a really nice unprotected left onto a high-speed road. I think it was Palo Alto Boulevard, if I'm remembering correctly. So, and then anyway, of course, Elon had to get in the ASS. He says everyone wants ASS. Version 12 will have actually smart summon, and he and Ashok were both saying that they think that it is going to be like a substantially better version of Smart Summon. Right now, it doesn't behave that well. But Smart Summon basically is you're standing at the corner, it's raining, you don't want to go out in the rain, you push the button and the car backs out and drives around and picks you up, or you've got groceries or whatever. Anyway, so the summon will actually work and it will be actually smart, so ASS. Anyway, it ignores the max speed set and drives at what it thinks is the best speed. Elon, I don't know if on purpose or whatever, said that the car was set to 80 miles an hour, but it was only going like 35 or 40 because it looked around and it said, this is not an 80, it's not a highway. So I'm not going to go 80 on this road. So that's really cool that it's able to do that. I did have a question that was not answered. And that was, if you're in a situation where your set maximum speed, say, is 40 miles an hour, but it looks like it's kind of dangerous and it needs to get out of a situation, will it be able to temporarily exceed that to get out of that situation? In other words, will it be able to go up to like 50 for temporarily, and drive in front of something and pull in and then go back to the regular set speed? So those will be interesting to see how that all works out. Next up, they came up to 2 lanes of traffic and there was a whole bunch of people in the right lane and very few cars in the left lane. And it went into the left lane and it followed that. And Elon was specific that he said it picks the lane with the fewest cars in it. And I was like, hallelujah. This is something that I also ding human drivers on that. It's like, if there's 2 lanes of traffic and one lane has a crap ton of cars in it and the other one only has a couple, why does everybody get in the lane with all the cars in it? It's just stupid. Go into the lane with the fewer cars. So it sounds like the vehicle has learned how to do that again from drivers. So that's fantastic news. I'm really, really happy. Generally speaking, WWHD, what would humans do? That's the kind of North Star of the full self-driving. It's always going, what would humans do? I assume when they curate the data, they take away bad drivers because there's plenty of bad human drivers. So they're probably looking for what would good, in parentheses, humans do. What would drivers do who are, hopefully in a standard deviation or so above the average driver? And if they're able to curate that data, and they kind of can, because they can look at safety scores and stuff, and they can go like, well, this person has a safety score of like 35, so I'm not going to use their data because it's unlikely that they're good drivers. Whereas this person has a safety score of 99, so I'm going to use their driving information to train me. And that's what I was talking about with the stop signs, because unfortunately, with only 0.5% of the public actually stopping at stop signs, that means that you're probably looking at worse drivers, not such good drivers who actually stop at stop signs, which means that the behavior is going to feel suboptimal at stop signs. But again, that's NHTSA's fault, not Tesla's fault. So hopefully they will relax that rule at some point. Anyway, so what would humans do is a really good North Star for that. There was a nice turn and merge at the end. There was a double lane left turn going into their Palo Alto buildings parking lot, and then it merged into the left lane because the right lane disappeared, and it worked really well. I saw that. It was very nice. They went through the parking lot, lots of traffic cones. And like I said before, that parking lot's messy. I got lost a couple times last year, so it was great. Then Elon started talking about this. He said that they don't need map data at all. In other words, you could wipe the map data off the Tesla completely. It doesn't have to know the roads, the Google map, all of that kind of stuff, even course data. You can just give it a GPS location and it will start driving. And he said, yeah, it's not going to route you the best way because of course it's going to be like driving down the road and it doesn't know that road actually stops there and then you have to go around. So he's like, it's not going to give you the most efficient routing because it doesn't know where the roads are, but it will get you there. And he was like, it's like a person. If you pointed at something far away and said, go to that, the person will, drive or walk towards it. They may make mistakes, but eventually they'll figure it out and get to that place. So he's like, the car will behave like that, and it doesn't need cellular coverage. So it doesn't need map data and it doesn't need cellular coverage. It can drive essentially like a human being without any aids. So it's the kind of thing where you just like see something and you're like, I need to go there, and you figure out how to get there. So that is incredible that they don't need cell phone coverage, which I don't think they need now, but more importantly, they don't even need map data anymore. You just tell it a GPS location. You can literally drop a pin and the car will figure out how to get there without needing any map data. Now, of course, it's going to be better if it has map data because it's going to do it more efficiently, but it's incredible that it can do that without that. If you compare this to like a Waze or Waze. If you compare this to Waymo or Cruise or something like that, those cars can't drive without cell phone connections. Cruise in San Francisco, where a bunch of them just got stuck because they lost their cell phone connection. They can't drive without high definition LiDAR mapping, all of that kind of stuff. this car, this is completely different. This thing can actually drive exactly like a human being drives. Like, I'm talking about a human without like access to your phone, without access to maps and things like that. You just get in the car and you just do your best. You just drive and you see roads and you turn on the roads and all of that kind of stuff. So the car can do it. That's incredible. That's just an amazing kind of stuff. At the end, you know, he reiterated that they will fix that one intervention with more training data. And he said, aside from that one intervention, he felt like it was a 5-star Uber drive. Like, he was like, if it was a human driver, aside from that one intervention that they had to give, he's like, I would have given them 5 stars for their ride because it was very smooth. It was very elegant, all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's what I got for you. Let me know what you think. I am incredibly excited about this. This gives us a lot of information. It doesn't give it to us because we've kind of gotten it before, but it makes it all very explicit and it makes it all very well laid out how they're doing this. The only thing that I don't know at this point that we didn't really hear about is how they're going to integrate, or if they're going to integrate large language models, because there has been some indication they'll do that. That may not come in version 12. That might be a future version of it, or it might be an add-on that they put on that you can talk more colloquially to the vehicle. But anyway, as far as the driving is concerned, considering that this is an alpha build, it looked exceptionally good, which I know is why Elon's been so excited about it. And everybody at Tesla should be really excited about this as well. And I didn't see random lane drift. I didn't see those random turn signals going on and off and all that kind of stuff. So this should be, I think, like the final step change to get to the place where I can see robo-taxis going. And even more happily for all of us who own Hardware 3 vehicles, it really looks like we're not going to be compute limited. It looks like the inference engine is going to be able to operate at the speed of the cameras at 36 frames per second plus. And that is a huge, huge benefit too. That means this is really good for all of us. I'm super excited. It's late at night. It's now almost 10:50. I'm going to post this in the middle of the night, so I hope you guys all watch it in the middle of the night. And in the meantime, everybody have a great evening and a great morning, and I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to do all the liking and subscribing and that stuff. Also, don't forget to buy a car from me if you want to. If you get excited about this and you want that, I will put that. That's always in every single video. There is the link to use my referral code and get $500 off a car. So, hey, that's not such a bad thing either. All right. Anyway, I will see everybody in the next video. Bye-bye.